We're going to first just dive into your professional life because the Panhandle is geared towards small business, people that are either in business currently or want to open a small business. And professionally, you are in the banking world. How'd you get there, and why did you choose that for your career?
So, Crystal, I grew up in this area in the Panhandle. And so as a high school student, I always waited tables and worked in the hospitality industry. And I thought I was going to major in that when I went to college.
Right.
I went to Florida State and I took my first accounting course, which most, hospitality admin majors are thinking, oh no. Well, I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was just really fit for me. And so I decided to change my major and went over to, ended up finishing up at the University of West Florida. My husband got a job back in this area, and so we transferred back from Tallahassee. And around the time that I was going to school, all of the scandal had broke about Arthur Andersen and the creative accounting of, that utility company.
Right.
And the trouble that it had gotten people in. And I thought, creative accounting is illegal. I don't want to go to jail. How about creative finance, though?
Yeah.
That could be very profitable, and it could be very good for our community, too. And so I ended up with a degree in finance. And after graduating, there were several banks that approached University of West Florida and offered internships and management programs.
Right.
And so I went to work with one of them. I had worked as a teller when I was in college, and so it was a natural fit. So I was filling some paperwork the other day and realized that I've been in banking now for 17 years.
That's crazy.
It
makes us feel old.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recall the first time I met you. You were at, I don't know if it was Coastal Bank then or Synovus. I'm not sure when they changed their name, but Nathan had it was his ribbon cutting. And he, was a lawyer at the time. And you approached him about opening his business accounts there. And you were very confident of yourself. You spoke very sure of what you were offering. And I mean, he ultimately ended up doing business with Compass because you just had this confidence about you. So I think early in your career, even before you climbed that ladder, you just knew that you were there and you were going to do good. And
I think when we have a good intention,
Yes.
it's easy to have a calm and confident heart.
That's right. Well, we've appreciated your insight from that very first day.
Sure.
That ribbon cutting back in, I think it was 2008. I'm trying to remember, but
Yeah, it must have been because we went to France in 2009.
You're right.
So, yeah.
So we know, you started out, like you said, a teller, but you then ended up in commercial banking.
I did.
So what exactly does that mean? What is a commercial banker, and how do you help small businesses?
Yeah, so I work with small business owners who have a financial need. Sometimes the financial need is just depository, treasury management services. But most often, because of the nature of what I do, it's a lending need.
Right.
And so they've either got an existing loan that they're looking to improve the terms on, or they're trying to grow their business and they need financing to do so. So we sit down and we talk about where they are today and what their goals are. And I think really understanding the history of a business, the cash flow cycle that's involved, and then where they're trying to get to. When we have those conversations early, it's easy to be able to set the expectations and help them meet their goals.
Is there different types of commercial lenders? Are you more focused on manufacturers or the service industry? Like, do I see you for any type of business loan that I would need, or is there specialization?
There is at some institutions. And that happens most of the time when you're dealing with larger businesses.
Okay.
So those would be those, and these large and small terms are so relative, right? What does that mean? I remember when I first got into banking as a teller, as a little aside, and I saw all the money on the table, and you're like, oh my gosh, and you're counting it as it comes in from the Fed, and this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I can't tell you, after I worked there for just a couple weeks, it was just dirty paper.
It was like Monopoly money.
It was. So it all changes. Anyway, so the larger businesses that usually have a specialized lender, those are going to be those whose annual revenues are over 50 million, sometimes over 25 million. And in my mind, and in the Panhandle, that's not a lot of the businesses.
It's not small business as we think of small business.
Exactly.
When Nathan and I decided to buy Adams Sanitation back in 2018, we obviously didn't just have the cash sitting around. And we knew that there was cash flow that would be coming in. We could project what we should expect monthly. We worked with you, and I believe it was Robin at Bbva, and you wanted a business plan. How are we going to grow our business? What was our idea for the future? And then we had to show you that we had cash flow to cover that note if you were to lend us money. I mean, what else, if I want to buy a business or want to start a business, what else do I need to have ready?
Yeah. You've hit on two of the most important things. There is not just the ability to repay from your vision. There has to be some backup source. One of the things that we learned that was the most valuable for me being a new commercial lender during the recession was that one source of repayment is not safe enough. And so making a loan to somebody to start a new business who has a employable skill to fall back on is often helpful. Because if the vision doesn't turn out, if they change their minds on the business, you always know, like I knew for you, Crystal, that you could go get in a job as an accountant somewhere. Right. You had a vision to take Adams Sanitation and bring it to the next level. But if for some reason people stopped throwing away garbage, and plan B was very attainable, and the same for Nathan.
Gotcha. Okay, I've never thought of it that way, but I'm not on the banking side of it, so that makes perfect sense. Historically, I mean, you've climbed the ladder, like you said. You started out as a teller, and then you were the president of the Fort Walton Beach area. That's generally been a boys' club. As a woman, how did you overcome the stigma of the banking executive industry? How did you get to where you were?
Oh, that really was a challenge. In the beginning, I was just worried about being young, and I remember with both of us starting out, and I was going to wear my hair a certain way, or I was going to dress a certain way, and now as the years have gone by, I'm not so worried about looking young anymore. But being a woman is still a contributing factor. And, in my role as city president with Bbva, I was a sales manager. And so I was working with a lot of other bankers, some who were women and some who were men. And I think that was such an eye-opening opportunity for me to see how men and women function differently in business relationships and how we can take the ways that we are naturally gifted and turn them to our benefit. Instead of seeing them as a detriment. There were times where, I had lenders who came to me, or I myself experienced maybe being left out. There was a hunting trip over the weekend. Yeah, the girls weren't going on the hunting trip. But, there were plenty of places that I showed up as a complete cold call because I had seen this business growing. I had heard about what they were doing, and I wanted to be the one that's going to be able to help. And, a pretty smile got me in the door where I'm sure a lot of my male colleagues might have been turned away.
Gotcha. But you kept up with what was happening in the community. You were engaged.
Yes, knowing where to call and how to then have that conversation, right? Because getting through the door only gets you so far.
Right. You got to connect with people.
You do.
And that confidence that I mentioned earlier.
It is. And understanding what's going on so you can carry your side of the conversation.
You know your stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
I feel like being a mom has helped me be a better employee because I had both my children when I worked for other people. And buddy, I had things to do at home. And so when I was at work, I was efficient. I had my priorities in line, and I got probably more done than I did before I had kids, just because it was necessity. I mean, have you experienced the same thing? Have you found yourself just more focused and engaged when you're at work because when you get home, it's all going to break loose?
Yes, I have. And as I've grown in my career and momhood, right? Because it's a learning process. I've realized that I had to compartmentalize, and that it all needed to get done while I was there so that I could turn it off and be at home and be able to focus. Because there have certainly been times where it just carried over. One of my favorite sayings when I was calling on a new business was that they were thinking about their business 24/7, and so was I. They needed someone who was going to be available 24/7. That's right. But as a mom, I can't always do that. Yeah. And so the rule today is that it might take me an hour or two to call you back, but I will.
Right.
And that's a more reasonable place. I had to learn that it wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon.
Oh, totally.
And I needed to keep going because I love what I do. And I'd like to have a career someday when my kids are grown and gone.
Exactly.
All of my friends who have older children tell me it happens before you expect.
So back to small business. What do you think all small business owners need to know when they're getting ready to apply for a loan or getting into business generally?
I would suggest seeking out answers before you're ready to borrow. When you're still in the dreaming phase, that's the time to start connecting with people that have the resources and knowledge to help you to set up your plan.
Okay.
So there's lots of ways to do that. Of course, everybody thinks, well, I'll just go online, right? And I mean, there's
Google's your friend sometimes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. There's a lot of information out there, but there's something to be gained by, Crystal, what you and I are doing right now. Having a conversation and being able to see somebody eyeball to eyeball who also knows your community specifics.
Right.
So with that, I've got two recommendations. One, I would say to visit your local bank. If you bank with a large institution, one of the national, banks, it might be worth finding somebody that's regional, but even there can be a commercial lender who might be able to help you.
Okay.
There are banks like Bbva, for example, who are top ranked in SBA lending. Those statistics are available online, so you could always look and see who's doing a lot of small business administration loans. They probably have a key to it, right?
Okay. How are SBA loans different from a loan directly with Bbva? Like, can you explain the difference and what business may be more suited towards SBA loan?
Right. So an SBA loan is great for a startup.
Okay.
It only works for a refinance if you're making a significant improvement in monthly cash flow,
Okay.
which can be achieved. Each bank has their own SBA lending standards and process. So if you're with a bank that is going to resell their SBA loans, they won't continue to service it after the fact, but they'll walk you through the process up front. Some banks will underwrite their SBA loans with a completely separate group. So they have employees that are going to analyze the financials, but those employees, they don't look at traditional loans.
Okay.
It's nice to find a bank that does both because you can then look at your options, which I think we did for you and Nathan.
Yes.
We said, okay, SBA loan is going to be longer fixed rate. These other maybe advantages here, but there's a fee up front that goes to the SBA and you're going to mortgage your house. I think they take a lien on everything.
Yes.
But your firstborn,
Right. That's what Nathan, he was like, oh my goodness. But
Yeah.
sometimes that's the best solution. It just depends on the circumstances.
Exactly. And so working with an institution like Bbva that offers both of those at once is a really efficient way to seek out the different options with it.
Okay.
But the bottom line is SBA is normally a longer fixed rate.
Okay.
They're a great resource for a startup.
What if you're buying a business?
That would be a great resource for SBA as well, right? And it'd be kind of seen like a startup. There in particular, everyone's going to want to know that you've got some history in that industry. So if you've been a hairdresser and you want to open a salon, or you've been a dog groomer and you want to open up your own shop, but if you've always been in something unrelated, it's sometimes a little bit difficult.
Hard to connect those dots a little bit.
Right.
What if you're in business and say you've been in business 2-3 years and you need to make a significant capital purchase, say a new garbage truck, for instance? How easy are those loans to make? I'm sure that's not an SBA loan. Is that more of an in-house loan?
Well, there's still options there. So sometimes SBA is a good fit. But a lot of times, once a business has been established for a few years, it has its own credit history. And so there's not the need for the guarantee. And I guess it's important to say too, the reason that an SBA loan is used by a bank is it provides an additional guarantee. So in the event that the borrower stops paying, the government says, hey, we'll step in and we'll cover this for you. And so it alleviates the risk that the bank's worried about with a new business or a business acquisition. So equipment lending is sometimes a lot easier for established businesses because they've got the track record to rely on, and you've got tangible, hard assets.
Right, you can touch it.
Right.
And repossess it.
Exactly. Just like the repo man might do with the car. I don't know how to tow a trash.
We're not going to have to
We don't have to worry about that. So, yeah.
So what about businesses that the bank path didn't work out for them? They weren't able to find a solution. Is there another resource that they can turn to?
There is. The University of West Florida hosts a local small business development center.
Okay.
So in Okaloosa County, I know that it's located at the UWF Fort Walton Beach campus.
Okay, I've seen it, yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you're listening from another county, you can Google SBDC in your county and find the local office.
Okay.
But that team is talking to bankers across their geography, and they are adept at helping new business owners to set up their operations, their business plans, and connect them with the people that they need. It's a free service.
So even if I don't necessarily need them to help me secure the financing, they might be a good resource to help me draw up my business plan.
Agreed.
Okay, very good to know. And I think they host classes. I've seen
They
posted
do.
before. So it's a good resource before you, like you said, dive in, do your research.
And your local community college is also a good resource. I know that Northwest Florida State College provided a class several years ago. One of the branch managers with Bbva, Valerie Manley, hosted that one.
Okay.
And, it was just such a great resource. Again, this face-to-face, talk through the plan, get feedback from somebody in the industry. Those resources are available.
And probably you make connections then with other people that are going through the same thing. And if you're not, in direct competition, that's just good people to rely on and have as a resource. I'm going through the same thing. What did you find out? What do you know that I don't know? So
Exactly.
it connects people.
It
Build your
does.
network before you're in business.
Yes. Well, according to the Small Business Development Center, 99.8% of businesses in the state of Florida are small businesses.
Really? I've never looked that up.
Yeah. And I mean, we have some large corporations in this state, but there are so many entrepreneurial minded individuals that have gone out on their own and tried to support our economy by setting up their business. And the other thing I think that's important with supporting small business, a large corporation, they've got, performance metrics and a plethora of competing priorities. But small businesses are committed to our community.
They have a lot invested.
They do.
And they might want to leave it to a family member to carry on. So
They're the ones that are going to sponsor the soccer team or, be able to support your next nonprofit and charity too.
that's right. I've always, in my career in accounting, I've worked for small business, and you wear a lot of hats, whereas in a bigger corporate setting, you're in your box and you don't get to see a lot of the back office operations of how small business works. There's a lot to it. And so I think that very well prepared me for owning a small business, is being involved, working for a small business. They taught me actually how to run my own. So you're right. We have a lot of awesome small businesses in the local economy. All right. We've been talking to Katie about her banking experience, her advice on how to get small business loans, how to prepare a business plan, and just resources that we can seek out if we're wanting to open a business. But next, when we get back, we're going to talk about what she does to give back to the community, and most importantly, the Southwest Crestview Bypass. What's going on with that?